Welcome to Got Grass, conversations with the legends and leaders of Bluegrass. You've enjoyed live Bluegrass at Guitar Town CT concerts in Hampton, Connecticut since 2008. From Tony Rice, Rouse Stanley, and Doyle Lawson to Tim O'Brien, Sierra Hall, and Billy Strings. Now you can go behind the scenes as we chat with your favorite Bluegrass stars. I'm your podcast host, Chris Worth. So this is episode 18, season 1 of Got Grass, and my guest today is Tim O'Brien. So welcome to Got Grass, Tim.
Great to be with you, Chris.
I usually start these interviews by asking musicians how you would spend the day if you had nothing on your agenda and no instruments in sight. So you can't go play the mandolin. What would you do? What would a typical day off for you be? Nothing to do. Or is there such a thing?
I might try to find something good to cook and eat. That's kind of a nice thing because a lot of times you don't have time to make something good to eat. And I like getting away from the business and stuff and getting away from the phone, getting away from the computer. And I like cooking a little bit, so that's fun. I'd go to the farmer's market and look for the fresh vegetables and take them back and make something good.
Yeah. What would be a favorite Tim O'Brien cooking menu?
Well, right now we got a lot of okra coming up in the garden, but it's a little hot to eat gumbo. So we're figuring how we can crisp them up in the oven or make tomatoes and okra. But, I like to make paella for a bunch of friends coming around. That's kind of fun. Baking the rice on the grill, rice and seafood and chicken stuff, sausage. And, I like to make a little curry or, some stuff. Nothing, I'm not that elaborate of a cook, but I do like messing around with the pots and pans.
Yeah, the same. So even though everybody listening knows who you are, could you just introduce yourself to our podcast listeners, like a short bio for those who might not know your story, just a brief intro?
Yeah, I was born in West Virginia in the northern panhandle of Wheeling, West Virginia, and started playing music when I was 11 or 12 and kind of kept at it and got hooked on the bluegrass sound of Doc Watson in particular. He kind of was a real mentor of, not personally, but his recordings, and then later knowing him was a great thing. But I got into that stuff and acoustic music more than anything else and started playing solo as a kind of folk singer in bars and stuff. And then joined up with Hot Rise in 1978. We started a group and we kept going for a dozen years full time. And that was my first foray into performing nationally and recording and also the earliest manifestations of songwriting. So since that time, I've kind of put more emphasis on the songwriting as I get older. And I think I'm known as a bluegrass musician, but I've been solo doing different kinds of things since 1990. And it's kind of Americana, kind of rootsy kind of stuff. And bluegrass is certainly part of it.
Right. Well, that's a good summary. Thank you for that. So as a kid, were you listening to the Beatles or bluegrass or all kinds of music growing up?
Yeah, I was listening to the pop radio, and I remember the first radio I had was a little crystal set that I got through the Boy Scouts, and you had a little one single earpiece that you listened to and used the radiator in my room for the antenna. You clip it onto the metal radiator and you get a better signal. And I remember that time, it must have been about 1961 or something. Chubby Checker you kept hearing the twist every other song, That was what was on. But, as the couple of years went on, it was Roger Miller and it was Peter Paul Mary and it was the Beatles. And I had songbooks by all of them when I started playing the guitar. And I went to see the Beatles actually when I was 65. I guess I was not quite 13. I guess actually, is that right? It might have been 64. They played in Pittsburgh in September, I think, of 65. Maybe that's what it is. So I was not quite, well, I guess I was 13. It doesn't make sense. No, I was 11. That's right. I was 11. That makes sense because I really hadn't started to play an instrument yet. But after that, my friends were playing sort of Sears and Roebuck guitars, and they had them in their house, and I learned to play a few licks, and then I got my own guitar and never looked back.
Yeah. Wow, you saw the Beatles. That's amazing.
I saw them. I didn't hear them very well because it was just screaming girls at
Yeah,
that point.
right.
That was like their first tour.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember I never saw them, but I was obviously watching everything they did as closely as possible and tried to imitate them. Uh, so you had older siblings, right? A bunch of you had who
Yeah,
were
I
the young?
have. I'm the youngest of five, and there's a couple of my siblings died before their time. My brother died in Vietnam in '68 when he was 22, I think,
Mm,
and my older sister died when she was 6. So my older brother that died in Vietnam was into music, and he brought home music from college. And my sister was into musical theater, Molly. She's a great singer. And she and I started singing together when we were in high school and really in grade school, really. And then we started performing for functions like school functions and maybe played a wedding or something for money when we were in high school. So yeah, those are influences in my family. My parents were not particularly musical. They supported my sister and my interest in it, and we used to go see the symphony. We had student tickets to the Wheeling Symphony season, and then we would go to the summer concert series in the park and see people like I saw Count Basie and Duke Ellington, and I saw some folk music acts, and I saw Ferranti and Teicher, piano duo. I saw
yeah, yeah,
different things.
yeah.
Dave Brubeck.
So
So I was interested in jazz.
yeah, yeah, I get it. Me too. My mom was a jazz pianist, so and I feel like you've written a lot about your family in various songs. So I think people have an idea of something about your family life. I know you've written about your father and your sister, and so yeah. Um, so being the youngest, did you feel like you got lost in the family power structure at times? I'm the oldest kid, so I never had to deal with being the youngest, but I know my youngest sister got lost in the shuffle.
Well,
Like,
I don't know if I got lost in the shuffle. I don't think of it that way at all, really. I feel like I was kind of given a lighter touch
mm,
because they had sort of been through the various, you know, experiences of raising children by the time they got around to me. And I was kind of left to my own devices in a lot of ways. I was kind
mhm.
of a spacey kid, and they kind of let me go. I like to draw, and I like to make up little poems and stuff, and write little short, funny stories. And um, I was not really good at team sports. And when I got a guitar, I kind of went into my own little world a little bit. And
Yeah.
the youngest in the family, I don't know. I think my parents were kind of worn out by the time they got to me. They kind of let me go.
Probably a good thing for you.
Yeah.
Do you have any specific musical memory where you said to yourself, "Wow, this is what I really want to do for the rest of my life"? It just clicked for you. Do you remember that, or?
Well, I remember within about maybe 9 months, or even less than that, of picking up a guitar and learning a few things, I found it really easy to just get lost in it, and time would just sort of disappear. I kind of, playing little licks on the guitar, I'd get into them and I'd vary them and I'd kind of discover new things and kind of put my ear up to it and kind of be on my own little world. And it it became a way of, I guess, a way of expressing myself. Like I get, shy kids, performers. A lot of performers start out as shy people that kind of organize themselves for a performance. they put their best foot forward, and it helped me to have a skill where I could express myself in a kind of organized way.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so really, just a couple of years in, I knew that it was going to be part of my life. I thought that I didn't know that it would be a livelihood uh, until I started making recordings. And then I realized, oh, people are responding well to these. And maybe if I learn better how to write, play, and record, I can make a go of this. And it was a no-brainer because I just loved doing it. So that was
A lot of
probably like when I'd been doing it for 7 or 8 years before, supporting myself before I made a recording.
a lot of bluegrass players have a strong background in the church and gospel music. Was that a part of your life growing up? Uh,
Well, I
Religion
grew up in
and the
the
church?
Catholic Church, and they don't really call it gospel music there. It's the liturgy,
Right.
and you kind of sing the liturgy. And when I was starting out as a little kid, they sang in Latin, and then but see it church though, and music at church was a big part of it for me because the folk mass started happening when in the mid '60s, I think. They had started to they started to say the mass in English, and they started singing songs in English, and so it was, and some of the priests at our church wanted to bring in new music too, new songs, and I got involved in writing songs with him and one of the members of the lay society there, a woman named Madeline Keyes. It was Father Charles Braun and Madeline Keyes. And we wrote songs for the folk mass. And as it went on, I became the main guy that played the guitar for the folk mass, and so I sort of had a regular Sunday gig. It's like really low pressure. I was talking to Justin Moses about this. His first performances were in church, and his parents sang gospel stuff, and they were probably in a Baptist church or some kind of thing. But he said, you don't have any pressure, and they really make you welcome, and you're propped up by this community that's there, a captive audience, and everybody's kind of wanting you to succeed, and it's a wonderful experience for somebody new to it to try it without a lot of pressure.
Yeah. Interesting. So it's not like being on stage. You're really with a big family that's hoping you do well.
Yeah, they're kind of hoping you do well, but it got to where I used to be singing. I used to be playing the guitar, and the priest or somebody would be leading the song from the altar. And then it got to where I would actually come up to the lectern on the altar and sing the song into a microphone, lead the congregation. So it was a little bit like a concert gig. But it was like
Yes.
one song at a time. It's
Yeah.
pretty mellow.
Yeah, that's interesting. A lot of the young bands, especially up here in New England, didn't grow up in the church, and it seems to be more about the music than any kind of church tradition in their take on bluegrass. Do you think bluegrass and the church, well, obviously they are connected and always were, but do you think that's an important connection that gets maintained, or do you see it kind of splitting off, or just depend on the band itself in terms of their connection to tradition?
Well, I think that the gospel music is a big part of bluegrass still, and it's we have a diverse audience for bluegrass anymore. It used to be a Southern audience, and by and large a church-going audience, and there was a lot of Saturday night sinning and Sunday morning repenting. People were on both sides of the coin, and you know, Ralph Stanley could sing about stone walls and steel bars, or Carter could, but then he could sing about, I'll meet you in church on Sunday morning. So that kind of thing is, there's two sides of a coin in Southern culture in a way, country culture. In the North, and the people that had came into bluegrass starting with the folk revival in the late '50s and stuff, it became more of a I don't think a lot of people in the North were kind of playing bluegrass like it was something interesting and kind of exotic, you know. And then after a while, you start embracing it all because you realize that it's real music. It's really personal, and it can be played anywhere. And just the sound of it, sound of the singing starts to grab you, and all of a sudden, gospel music becomes more palatable. And so, when Hot Rise started, we had one guy who was Jewish in the band, and the rest of us were pretty not very much, church going folk. But we liked the singing the gospel songs because it was part of the idiom, and also we just loved the sound of them. And so what we tried to do was pick songs that we could believe in, or that were not as gory. We didn't like the bloody gospel songs. We liked the sort of guilt-free ones. And that led to writing songs that were kind of like that, I like the Staple Singers because they kind of had messages. They were a black gospel group, but they sort of had message songs, and they went with the civil rights movement and melded gospel with that. And that, I think, was a good direction. And that's kind of where Hot Rise aimed in that kind of a way.
Mm-hmm. When you were growing up, did you have any, I'm sure you had heroes, personal heroes or musical heroes specifically, or?
Well, yeah, I mean, I certainly loved Paul McCartney, and I loved, people like James Taylor. I was really into, and Doc Watson was a major one.
Mm-hmm.
And really, Sam Bush, when I started playing mandolin and fiddle, he was definitely a big hero. And getting to know him was great early on. And, there's a lot of heroes out there. And meeting up with Doc and getting to play with him occasionally on stage was a real thrill. And he's been my hero.
Mm-hmm. Was that partly because of what he went through to get where he was, being blind and all the adversity he had to put up with? Was that part of your
His
admiration for
story.
him, or?
Yeah, his story is really intriguing, and his I don't know, he just had this very well-ordered presentation. If you heard bluegrass for the first couple times, you might think, God, what's with the high whining singing, and will the fiddles ever play in tune, and that kind of thing, and you just don't understand what they're getting at. And Bill Monroe's mandolin style is kind of hard to understand, and now it's like the coolest thing to me in the world. But Doc had this sort of real palatable singing style, and his guitar thing was so clear and seemingly pure because he played acoustically, and he played with Martin guitars or Gibson guitars, and that made me want to get one like him and to play like that. It just made so much sense. I tried to play electric guitars, but once I started learning some of the stuff that Doc did, I basically left it all behind. Ironically, Doc came from that. He played a little bit of guitar, and then he got into playing electric guitar for a living, playing for dances, playing rockabilly and playing square dance tunes on the guitar. And his attack and everything was informed by that playing electric, I think. He had a very pristine sound.
Yeah, he sure did. So your path to success and where you are today in the acoustic music world, would you describe it pretty much as hard work and determination that got you where you are today? I mean, obviously the talent is there, but I mean, to get, is it just a lot of work to get
Well, I
success?
think it is. I think you do have to put in a good amount of work. You have to have a few breaks, you have to have a little bit of talent or aptitude and the willingness to work at improving that aptitude. But really, the hard work, I think the thing about it, the way I made a name is that I just enjoyed doing it. And if I ever had students, I would say, whatever you can do to make this enjoyable will enable you to play more often, and you'll get better and you'll learn new things. And so that was what drew me into it. I just was always interested in learning new things and also trying out what I'd learned in front of other people and collaborating with the musicians and with the audience. So yeah, you got to put the time in. And of course, they say if you want to improve as a musician, you want to play with people who are better than you know, because they'll teach you and you have to measure up to them. So that means you keep looking around for other collaborators. And as you improve, you need to keep finding new ones. And that led me to people like Charles Suttel and Pete Wernick, you know, and Nick Forster, who really, we were all kind of in graduate school in music kind of when we started that band. We were kind of learning how to learning how to record, learning how to play and sing and write. And Charles and Pete had a little more experience than me, but really we were all kind of beginners in that world.
You feel like you got a lucky break along the way that really enabled you to kind of like a big step forward? Was there anything that particular that you remember that said, wow, this really was my lucky break?
Well, I think it was a good break to get with Pete Wernick and start Hot Rise. And I also think it was a lucky break to sell a few songs early on in there. We recorded some songs with Hot Rise that got recorded by Kathy Mattea in the late 80s. And that gave me a license to just devote more time to that. And it took pressure. Getting a top 10 record in the country at that point meant you could sort of live off that for a while. And it was, it was a step up in income, but also it was like, oh, if I do this and I do this again, it's really worth my while to sort of sit with a guitar during the day instead of, calling people on the phone trying to get a gig or, getting a day job.
Wow. So how did you decide to go to Colorado from West Virginia? Was that just kind of like head west and see what happens, or?
Yeah, I had some friends. I worked in a summer camp for 3 seasons out in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And after the 3rd season, some friends were moving to Jackson for the winter. So, I'd spent a year in college and I decided to try playing music for a living. And I figured I could play in the, après ski gigs during the winter and figured I could probably live pretty cheap. Well, I did that, and but there weren't many musicians there. And on a little bit of, exploration, I visited some friends in Boulder, Colorado. And there was a whole college scene, the college crowd, the students supporting the music scene. And just the Front Range in general was a vibrant musical scene. Denver Folklore Center was going. And so I moved down there. I love the West. I went out west first with the Boy Scouts to Philmont, which is a big property out in New Mexico where you can take a 50-mile hike and stuff. So I really love the mountains, and I went to another camp out there one summer and ended up working in those mountains in Wyoming. So Colorado was kind of a good combination of that climate and scenery and the skiing and all that kind of stuff, camping, along with a music scene that was vibrant. I could have stayed in the East Coast, and I probably could have found a music scene where I'm from in West Virginia, but I was also itching to get away from home. It's a general thing, I think, in the time that I grew up, was people had a desire to explore and get away. Anything seemed possible, so I tried what felt cool.
You met the guys who became Hot Rise. Who came up with the name and the kind of concept of like where you were going to focus your energy songwriting wise, or is it a kind of a group thing, or was that one particular person who said let's call the group Hot Rise and let's do whatever the stuff you did? How'd that come about?
Well, we the members of the band knew each other before we started, and Charles and Pete and I had and Nick all really had played informally together at different times occasionally. I was fairly regular as a guest fiddler with a band that Pete and Charles had, and I would go and play there they had a weekly gig at the Denver Folklore Center. And and then I made a solo record, and Pete and Charles played on it, and Pete Wernick made a solo record, and Charles and I played on that. So those records were coming out in early 1978. So Pete called me up and said, "Why don't we start a group?" And we were going to play some of the music from those recordings. And Pete was into doing a certain kind of thing. He had this thing he called Niwot music. And it was the record he made, Dr. Banjo Steps Out. The sound he was going for was electric bass, mandolin, and banjo, and without any guitar. And the mandolin player that was the real mover and shaker to him was Andy Statman, who played a lot on that record. So I got involved in that record. I played a little bit of mandolin and sang some. And so when we started the group, he said, "Let's play that kind of music a little bit, and we'll work on whatever else we can figure out." And he had the idea for the name. He said, "I think we could call it Hot Rise." He said, "Do you know what that is?" I said, "No." He said, "That's it's part of the Martha White flour jingle. That's the secret ingredient, the leavening ingredient in Martha White flour with Hot Rise, as sung by Flatt and Scruggs." And I was not enough of a bluegrass aficionado to know that song, but very soon I learned it backwards and forwards because we sang it every night. But that was Pete's idea. He had enough of a plan that we took it.
Yeah. So is it possible today to develop your career the way you did, or has the music business changed a lot and made it a whole different pathway to success in Americana music, for example?
Well, things changed along with the technology, I suppose. I think the internet had a big change in the way bands start and break. Before that, there was the mailing list, but the computer plus the computer generated address stickers was a big thing. So you would take the names at your gig and get their street address, and then you'd put that into your computer, and then when you were going on tour, you'd send out a newsletter. Now, Hot Rise did that. One of the first guys I knew that did that was John McCutcheon, a folk singer. Very organized. And then it became the internet with email lists and that kind of thing. And social media really changed it. I think like a group like Leftovers, I'm not Leftovers Salmon, but Yonder Mountain String Band, they had the new thing. You start out small, you sell, your admission to the shows is really low, the prices look really low, and you gradually build up an audience. You provide the party space, and you keep in touch with your audience, and it grows and grows. And that's I think the way to do it. You have to grow your social media presence before you can really do anything of significance, I think. Before, it really did have more to do with radio. When Hot Rise was starting, National Public Radio was a new kind of system, and public sponsored community radio stations were springing up everywhere, and they always had a bluegrass component. They were, there's still the community stations are still the same. They have different DJs that specialize in different things, and there's usually a bluegrass hour or two every week. And so that was our strength. That plus the bluegrass societies that had sprung up, bluegrass festivals and bluegrass, societies like the California Bluegrass Association or the Colorado Bluegrass Association. There's one in every kind of community that kind of helps people organize. And so those were real assets. If I was playing right before I started in Hot Rise, I was in a band called Ophelia Swing Band, and we played acoustic string music and tried to play jazz. There's just no recognized place for that kind of music. It's a real small niche. And I learned a lot playing in that band, but when we tried to play at a jazz club, they go, "That's not jazz. That looks like a bluegrass band." And if we played a bluegrass event, they go, "Why aren't you playing Little Maggie and stuff?" And so
Yeah.
it was kind of when Hot Rise started, and we'd do Blue Night and Prayer Bells from Heaven, we could sneak our original songs in there, and the bluegrass people really seemed to like it.
Mhm.
So it was a real. I don't know that exists the same way, and yet the IBMA is the International Bluegrass Music Association is a great asset for young bands starting out, because now you have showcases you can play for people from all over the country when you have something to offer as a new band, and that can really help. It really can help launch you quickly. So I think you can sort of do it the way Hot Rise did it, but I think you need to harness the new tools.
I would imagine that winning an IBMA award, or especially a Grammy, would do wonders for your career, for at least for the short term. Is that true? Like,
I think that's true. It's a nice thing to on your resume, but I have to say it's mostly evidence of something that's already happening. In other words, if you win a Grammy, when I won a Grammy both times, I think the real reason was that I'd been doing this for a long time and people knew my name. You got to keep coming up with the goods, but it's a popularity contest, even though it's your peers that are voting for you. So the IBMA is another one like that, and you know, those awards are a long time ago, and I still play for the crowd. But I'm not the new kid on the block, and those awards are they cement your place in the music and in the the audience's minds. They're very helpful.
yeah. You seem to flourish in the duo format. I remember you toured with Brian Sutton. That was really a magical pairing. Same with Daryl Scott. Do you particularly like playing with one other person as a performance thing?
Yeah, I do like that. I liked having the trio that I had with Mark Schatz and Scott Nygaard. It's a smaller group, is really flexible. The duo is even more flexible. And right now I'm playing in a duet with my wife Jan, and that's been really great because we learn the songs together. We were at the same house. We write songs together, and then we can perform the stuff that we've invented ourselves. But it's it's great, and it's not a full band, so it's hard to measure up against a full band on a concert bill as a duo. Sometimes it sounds a little thin, but in a little club, like a little small concert venue, which is my favorite sweet spot, duo is great.
Yeah. So you spent most of your life touring and recording and writing, and I would imagine you spent a lot of your time by yourself during those years. And so now you tour and record with your wife. That must be, as you say, a lot nicer to have a companion that you can not only travel with and live with, but also write and sing with.
No, it's great. It's really great. I mean, it's so efficient, and but we need to, you learn. You got to. It's just like any other situation, and like the marriage itself. You really need to have give and take, respect
Mhm.
one another. But we pay a lot of attention to the music, and I think it is paid off. We have a record now, pretty much in the can, of about 14 songs that we've written together. And most of them we wrote with Tom Paxton, which has been a wonderful thing for the last year or so. He approached me to write, and so the three of us would, Jan and I get in front of the computer and we get on Zoom like we are right now, and we write a song pretty much every time we get together. So just keep. I don't know exactly what's next, but I guess I'll keep doing this for a while.
Yeah. Well, I guess if it seems to be working pretty well for you.
Yeah, yeah, it's working okay.
So when you write songs, do you have a certain system or process, place where you write, or is it just random, or how do you come up with a song generally?
Well, songs are, you can't force them, and but it for me, it usually means finding some kind of little hooky phrase or some kind of phrase that means enough to write a song around it. When I thought of the phrase "walk the way the wind blows," I went, "Oh, I know exactly what that's about. I know I can see it. I can see some action happening, and it's just a matter of sort of shaping it into a song and putting some music behind it." But I might go for 6 months looking for some kind of thing like that, some kind of idea like that. So it's kind of random. And then other times, maybe you're just want to write about a certain subject and you kind of think about it a lot until you come up with that way in. And it might be years. But like we were writing with Paxton one day, and one of the best songs I think we wrote is called "Fat Pile of Puppies." I don't know, it doesn't sound like it's a very good song.
Yeah.
But I was playing this lick on the guitar. I was going ba ba da da da, and he went that. He says that sounds like "Fat Pile of Puppies," and it came out in a period of an hour and a half or 2 hours. It came out as I don't want to see these puppies because I'm going to fall in love with them, and can you please get them away? And then by the end of the song, the guy's down on the floor and they're all over him, and he's in love. And I can't be angry, I can't be sad. Fat pile of puppies drives me mad.
So
But
it
it's just
could,
funny. Like he heard a phrase. He heard
yeah.
like music will sound like words to some people. And words also, like a phrase like "walk the way the wind blows," it sounded like that music to me
Hmm.
when I said the phrase. There's a little music in the words too.
And I've talked to people who write songs who say, yeah, I always come up with the music first, and then the phrase or the melody or the mood will kind of inspire lyrics. And I know there are other writers who write the lyrics down and say, well, okay, now let's figure out a nice melody to go with these lyrics. So I guess it could go either way.
It goes either way, but I think the music and the lyrics kind of lean on one another, and they ask questions of each other, and they kind of help each other prop up. Like the music doesn't have to be as good because you have lyrics. It doesn't have to be as starkly original or moving or anything. You can just sort of use a stock thing if you have something you want to say, and it kind of props up that music. And the music will kind of help words that are not so profound too. It's kind of a funny thing. Like the music to me is a mysterious thing, like almost like a natural manifestation of humankind, of nature, and like trees growing or something, or birds singing, and it's a form of communication. The music itself is kind of a communication form that maybe predates speech, and it's sort of it kind of calls something out to the humankind or something. It's some kind of like something from our earliest days. Just the sound of music, and you know that that plus a few words really can take you somewhere. The instrumental bits in songs are really important, I think, because in between a chorus and the next verse, you might have a little instrumental that lets people think about what you just said in the lyric, and it helps it kind of sink in. It helps the lyric that way.
Yes, songs are kind of a strange blend because you have poetry, which a song really isn't a poem set to music, although I guess it could be. So you have poetry, which is just by itself connects to people. Then you have just singing or music by itself connects to people like you say, on a very basic level. But then you mix them together, and maybe it's it's an interesting mix of because the music has to be simpler in a song. You're not writing a sonata. The music has to be simple so that the words shine. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, a real simple thing really will translate. And it's, when you get into sort of popular music, like country songs and pop songs, a little phrase like Jan and I were on a flight one day, and there was people behind us. There was 5 women, and there was 6. There's 3 seats behind us, and then 3 seats across from them on the aisle, across the aisle from them, and they were all talking about this girls' weekend they were going on, and they were going to go drinking, and they were away from their husbands, and their husband was worried about the towel that they brought because it's really nice cotton. And I don't even want to sit on the beach because I don't want to get sand in it, And they're talking about this, but they said, "But I'm down to burn." One of them said, "I'm down to burn." She kept saying it, and me, I was asleep. But Jan said she told me about everything they said, and then we ended up writing a song called "Down to Burn." And you just never know where the idea is going to come from, but it's like a little hook. I said, "I'm down to burn. I'm down to burn. I'm not. I'm here. I'm here to live. I'm not here to learn. Ooh, rah, rah, I'm down to burn."
Would you say your songwriting has changed over the years? Maybe gotten a little more political at times, or you still look at songs the same way you always did?
Well, I used to, think. I used to write to a style. With Hot Rise, I was trying to write bluegrass songs, and something like Nellie Kane fit the bill. I used some personal friends as sort of templates in a way to make them sort of more personal and sort of original, I guess. But I was kind of writing to a style and trying to get something that we could sing and play. And then I started thinking, well, maybe I can write some songs that a country artist would sing, and I kind of got that. But the successful ones were the ones that were the more personal ones. They had a more of a identity to them. Maybe they seem more real as a result. But somewhere in there, I started thinking, well, politics is kind of on my mind, and maybe I should write about that, because you're supposed to write about what you know, or what you're thinking about, I suppose. And I did some of that, but I realized the political part of it is better if it's kind of, if you can write it without it being overt. And I wrote a song about Thomas Jefferson's children by his slave mistress, and I was fascinated by the subject matter, and so I don't really say in that song. It's called "Can You See Me, Sister." I don't really say anything about slavery was bad, or our racism is a stumbling block in our society, but it's all there in the song. And so I try to. Politics is fine. I think I don't think John Prine was trying to write a protest song with Paradise. He was just writing about what happened. But people took that as an anthem for, hey, we don't need the strip mines to tear up our land. And he didn't really mean it that way, but there's a lot of politics in it. And, I think, I guess he wrote, "Your flag decal don't get you into heaven anymore," because he was a mailman. He was delivering these Reader's Digests with American flags in them, decals in them. And he's, "God, I can carry these Reader Digests everywhere with these American flag decals. You can see them right within the package." And he was, seeing his friends come back from Vietnam, and he kind of stumbled on the song. it was obvious, but it wasn't so overt. So I don't know. I think I sort of I'm wary of. I don't want to make my audience mad and divide them with political stuff. But Dolly Parton says she'll never do it, and I think she's never ever raised a political word in on stage. And I think the music is really about bringing people together more than it is about sort of dividing us up into teams. But politics is just there. Pete Seeger says all songs are political, even a lullaby's political to the baby. So
Right. Yeah. Well, there's a guy who's about the most political songwriter I think who ever lived, musician, Pete
yeah, maybe
Seeger.
so. Yeah, he was definitely he definitely had a place in time and in history and in the society for sure.
I mean, I always felt like the song that had the simplest lyric from which the listener could interpret whatever they wanted from it was the best song. And I think when songs try to make statements, sometimes they lose. Like you say, you might alienate half your audience with a statement song.
You never know what little thing you might say. It's funny, like with gospel music, if you sing a lot of gospel music on a show, some of the folks might think you're a real church going person, and then they might think, oh well, you're a right wing because of that. And it's funny how that I try to be, I don't know, I try to be neutral, but try to be myself at the same time. I think people know I'm kind of lefty, so it's okay. I think a lot of people stay away from the shows because they don't want to hear about it.
It was funny because symbols like
But
the
the other
American
people come.
flag. Yeah, I know. Symbols like the American flag have been co-opted by a certain political group. So it's just weird. You can't fly the flag because they think you're a Trumper. You know?
Yeah, well, I disagree with that. I mean, I agree with it. I see what you're saying, but on the Fourth of July, I put up my flag because I thought,
Yeah,
I'm a American too.
yeah.
I'm proud of this place.
So are you somebody who likes the sound of your recorded voice? I talked to a lot of musicians that say, no, I don't. I want to keep changing it, but eventually the producer says, no, that's it. It's good. Done. Do you like to keep redoing your singing, or are you happy with your?
Um, I do it. I do some. I try to learn it pretty well before I go to the recording studio, so that and then you know troubleshoot so that I don't have to worry too much about it. But yeah, I got used to the sound of my own voice. At first, it's jarring when you hear your voice, and because you're hearing it from a different angle. But I got pretty used to the sound of it, recording it, and learned. I guess I learned how to live with it. It's always a little, there's imperfections, and but I realize there's no. You can work a little too hard to fix things sometimes, and it can get a little stale. It's funny nowadays with Pro Tools, digital hard disk recording. It's really easy to manipulate things, and really easy to edit out bad parts and get new parts in and that kind of thing. It's easier than ever. But I still just generally go with a basic version. And if I hear something wrong that's not clear, I might sing it again just to get the lyric out. A little out of tune. Uh, there's a little of that, but I can usually stay fairly well in the ballpark on a basic take.
Mm. Always like you probably know David Peterson, who's a New England guy who's taken on
Yeah.
the mantle of old time gospel and stuff in Nashville, and he's kind of a controversial guy, I guess, politically. I don't go there with him, but his style of recording, which I really like, is just one microphone in the center and five guys around, and off we go. I just love. To me, that's music. I don't need everything in tune. I don't even like all that stuff. I just like to hear people make a mistake. So what? It's music. It's live. But
Yeah, I love that too. I like the sound of people reacting to one another, and
hmm
that's only possible if everybody's playing at the same time. there's so much recording that's done now. It's one thing at a time, and the guy that records first, the other guys can react to him, but he can't react to the ones that go after him because he's already done his part.
Yeah.
There's something elusive and wonderful about interaction between musicians. And Edgar Meyer, he says, I really don't like it when everything's not only he not only wants people to play at the same time, but he wants their microphones to be close enough to where they bleed together. He thinks that really helps the sound. He thinks it makes it more natural. And it can get a little stale. It can get a little too pristine with technology. So one of the good things about modern hard disk recording is it makes it easier for everybody to sort of take off the headphones and get closer to one another because they can edit the entire take now if there's a problem. But it's also, I've noticed in sessions where you take off the headphones, you're kind of really paying more attention to what everybody else is doing. You have to. It's you might not hear them as strongly as you would with headphones, and you have to give them a little room, and that makes for a good situation.
Mm-hmm.
It's also true. Like I think the old time way of recording, people really were ready for their session. They knew the music backwards and forwards. They might not play it the same way every time, but they really had a lot of great stuff ready to go when they went to the session. And that's another thing, like being prepared. It makes it easier to record it all at once.
This is my opinion, but I think it's taken by a lot of people that there are really only a handful of solo performers in all of music that can captivate a live audience like you. Did you have to work at that skill, like just being up there by yourself and making the room work, or did that just come naturally to you, like being up there by yourself and doing your thing?
I guess I never really had a lot of fear of doing it because I did that as a kid in church, as a high schooler. And I guess maybe part of my attitude about it is I realize that people going to a concert are kind of like people that go to a church. They're kind of going through the door with the intention to listen to something and maybe help. Maybe it'll like take their troubles away for 45 minutes or a couple hours. And everybody's on the same page. Everybody's kind of wanting to do the same thing, which is kind of listen to some music, and the performer has to play it, but you're really just part of that experience. But I don't know. I think being at home on stage and grabbing the audience is about just being yourself, and maybe you need to reveal some of yourself, poke a little fun at yourself. When you make a mistake, it's, you call attention to that and say, yeah, hey, look at that. I can make a good mistake there. Maybe I'll do that again. And, just poke a little fun at yourself really helps the audience lighten up and kind of get on your side. I've seen performers that get up. One of them is Old Man Ludica. He played at one of your concerts with me.
I remember very well. Yeah.
Yeah, he opened the show. And he gets up and really, even before he plays a few notes, he talks and he's self-deprecating and he's humorous. And he introduces a song. And really, by the middle point of the song, by the first chorus of a song, he sort of has the audience on his side. And it's kind of remarkable. I really admire that, and I aspire to that kind of a thing. I probably do some of that, but it's about kind of letting yourself be vulnerable and letting the people know you.
Mm-hmm. I noticed that a lot
musicians. I'm sorry, but a lot of performers, like I said before, shy people, they kind of put themselves forward in a sort of organized way. And a way that they know they won't be embarrassed by, hopefully won't be too embarrassed by. So, you're kind of shaping something that is you, but you're putting your best foot forward. It's like you put on nicer clothes and comb your hair for the show, but your presentation is part of that preparation too.
Yeah, I've noticed because we've had a lot of younger bands play at our series, and a lot of the younger bands don't pay much attention to the audience. They play, they are their own little group, but they don't really even attempt to entertain or talk about themselves very much. I just find that very strange. I don't know. Like you're there to entertain. People want to connect with you, and a lot of them just don't. I don't know why.
Yeah, well, they're actually working really hard and trying to get the music right, and maybe that's one reason why it doesn't seem like they're paying attention.
Yeah.
I think they are, but it's sometimes you don't want to make stuff too hard to do on stage. You want to do stuff that you can pull off without working too hard at it, and that's why you practice. You kind of get, I don't know, as far as what you bring on stage, your best 20 or 30% of what you have to offer is what you bring there. You leave the rest of the stuff for later until you get it right.
Mm.
So that helps kind of to interact with the audience. Kind of, you know what you're doing. You kind of have time, and you're not freaking out about playing these hard chord changes and all that kind of thing. You just kind of practiced.
Yeah. Well, I guess a lot of the younger bands too, especially the ones that are going to Berkeley and East Texas, are so proficient that the music becomes almost the obsession rather than the entertainment or the bluegrass or any of the other things. It's become so focused on the difficulty of the music sometimes that sometimes it loses me.
Yeah,
I
well,
mean,
the music.
I like great players, but
Yeah, sometimes the music itself is a little difficult,
mhm,
and it can be a challenge to keep up with it, and
mhm,
that kind of music is for a different kind of fan, I think.
yeah,
Certain artists, that's what they specialize in,
mhm,
and you know, somebody like Jerry Douglas and Tommy Emmanuel. They don't worry about playing complex music. They are playing complex music, but they're mostly having a good time reacting to one another, and that's what the audience loves about them. They go hearing them because they love their music, love their instrumental styles, but I think they get sold by the interaction and by the lighthearted uh, presentation of it.
um, always enjoy when people, not just you, but people forget the lyrics to a song. Because right now you've connected with the audience completely because they're like, how do you remember all those words anyway? And now you don't. It's to
Yeah,
me that's like the most personal thing you can do is forget the lyrics.
yeah, I think it
Oh
is.
man.
It's an honest mistake on stage is a good chance to sort of say, "Hey, I'm human, and we're all in this together." And it's you know that's a real valuable trick, and it's important. Like people wince. I see people wince when they make a mistake on stage, and I go, "Don't do that. Just say, hey, smile, and go, hey, I made a mistake. Let me try that again."
Uh, Tim, what was the nicest compliment you ever got as a musician that you remember? Any particular thing that somebody said to you that really made your day or your week or your life?
You know, last, I guess a little over a year ago, um, I was on Mountain Stage, which is this radio show taped in West Virginia, and the host was Larry Gross, and he said after the show we did all new songs. I had the Cup of Sugar record recorded. It was coming out in June, but it was January, and we sang 5 new songs. And he came up to me afterwards. He said, "You're more like yourself. Your songs keep coming up with songs, and they're better, and they're more like you all the time." And to me, that was the greatest compliment because it's funny. Like you try to measure up to other songwriters or performers, and it's really yourself that you compete against. And the great jazz artist Thelonious Monk, he had there's a little thing you can find on the internet. He has his rules for music, people were asking what, for advice when they were playing in his band and stuff. And one of the things he said is the genius is the one that's most like himself. And if you listen to his music, it's really he's the only one that sounds like him. You listen to Bill Monroe, he's the only one that sounds like him. And Duke Ellington was that way. Bob Dylan is that way. And that's what I really aspired to. And that was one of the best compliments I've ever had.
Well, if there's any consolation to you, when I hear the first note of a song of yours, I know it's you. So I think that's maybe the ultimate compliment there too.
No, it is. It's a great thing.
You sound like you.
Yeah, well, that's what Lester Flatt said. You need to do something that nobody else does, because then they have to hire you to do it. That's a great piece of advice, but you have to do something that people like that only you can do. That's the intersection you're looking for. Because then you can have fun playing music, and you can be yourself, and people will buy it, and you can keep on going.
Is there anybody today on your bucket list that you'd like to sing with but haven't had the chance? I ask this of everyone. I've got some interesting answers. Missy Raines said Jimmy Martin. Rhonda Vincent said James Taylor. Amanda Cook said Bonnie Raitt. Anybody that you'd like to sing with that you haven't had a chance that you still might do?
Oh, geez, I don't know. I don't know. I've had a pretty good experience and had some great, incredible opportunities. Ry Cooder's somebody I always wanted to sit down and jam with, and maybe record with. Singing with, I don't know. Singing with my sister was always really good. I like singing with my wife too, and Junior Sisk, I love his singing. I'd love to sing with him sometime.
Yeah.
I'm trying to pitch him some songs.
So at this point in your life, what advice would you give to your younger self if you could now? Any particular wisdom that you would say, you should have done this, or you shouldn't have done this, or would you have done things just the way you did?
Maybe I would say there's some distractions out there you can avoid. Drinking and smoking stuff is a kind of a distraction, and trying to measure up to somebody that's more successful than you is a trap, and I would say avoid that. And really, the main advice I would try to give myself is just be yourself, and it'll probably work out if you work hard at it. It's these days, I think musicians need to, like before, they need to learn from everybody else around them, and the community is a big part of their world that they need to interface with. And I think you can get some help. You can get publicity help. You can get management help with recording. You don't have to learn it all yourself. You don't have to do it all yourself, even though computers and social media say, you can. It can be distracting. If you really want to work on the music, you need to work on the music. And if the rest of it gets too much, you need to get some help. And so I'd urge folks to collaborate and, share the workload and share the wealth if you ever get any.
So you have a week off from music. Where are we going to find you? You have a week with nothing to do, and you're going to go do something. What would your ideal week off be like, or was that too much time away from music?
Oh, I would bring music with me, and
okay.
But yeah, I would go to a beach or a old historic town, city, and see the sights. I would, like we went to Prague last summer, and I definitely wanted to eat some goulash, and I definitely want to drink some beer from Prague, and but I also wanted to go see the sights and some museums and stuff, and try to read up on where I'm going. but really, we like to go camping and just get out where it's quiet. And, right now I'm working on a songbook, and I'm learning. I've learned enough of the program, of digital program, to transcribe stuff so that it looks right when you publish it. But I took a manuscript paper and a notebook with me to go camping because I knew we were going to be away from the internet and stuff, and I couldn't use a computer. So, I took a week off, but I still wanted to work on some music. I couldn't leave it alone. So I brought manuscript paper and I started charting out these songs. And it's funny, Chris, I've been looking back at, I got 40 songs picked out from about 50 years of writing songs. And it's interesting. It's kind of surveying my whole career. It's kind of weird. And I realized I could have made things a lot simpler if I'd have learned better. I mean, I realized my singing goes up every which way rhythmically, and there's a lot of variation in it, and it's hard to latch on to. It seems normal to me. It's funny to study myself, and I'm kind of, as I get old, I'm doing that. It's kind of, I guess it's a normal thing. You kind of look back as you get, I'm 70 now, and I'm looking back at stuff and I'm kind of amazed, and I'm still trying to understand it, really.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm at the same. I'm 71. I can relate. Did you ever imagine yourself as a elder statesman of music? Just thinking about turning 70, it's hard. I know that the years sneak up on you, but now
I never
you're
thought of
considered.
it. I never thought of it, and I still, still trying to get this right, So I feel like I'm still learning and stuff, and yet people think I know something. And I guess the one thing I know that they don't know is that even though I've done a lot of things, I still don't really understand a lot of things. And hold on, Chris. Yeah, Jen.
It's been over an hour,
Okay.
We'll wrap it up.
I don't. Yeah, we'll wrap it up soon. But that was that's one of the funny things about being an elder statesman is I don't really have much to say about it. I mostly just encourage people to go and find their own ways into this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's really, really wonderful to watch the new, younger performers come up and the new bands come and get, notoriety and things, and people like Billy Strings and Sierra Farrell, they're really, sail into the sky, and they deserve to. And they both have me sit in on their shows, and I go, that's really a wonderful thing. But mostly I'm interested in what they're up to.
Right. Well, I kept seeing Jan come through the door in the back. Now she came through with a plastic bag, like maybe it's time to go grocery shopping or something. So,
Maybe so.
I'm gonna call it right there. I want to thank you, Tim, for taking time to chat today. It's been really fun talking to you. Best to Jan, and good luck with all your musical projects. I'm sure you've got a lot going on.
Yeah, well, good luck with Guitar Town and all the things you do. We're part of the same big glob of aficionados of music, and we all do our part. So I appreciate what you've done, and have a lovely summer.
You too. It's been 7 years since you guys played up here, so hopefully we'll see you sometime soon.
Yeah, hopefully come back. Okay.
All right. Well, thanks again, Tim.
Thanks, Chris. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
I hope you enjoyed our podcast, and thanks for listening. Visit our website, guitartownct.com, for concert and podcast schedules, or just to send us a message. We'd love to hear from you.